So what is joy, right? So the general definition of joy. So joy is a choice purposefully made. Joy is an attitude of the heart and the spirit present inside us as an untapped reservoir of potential. So when I think about the definition of joy, I go back to this. And it's a lot of times people conflate it with like happiness, where it's like, oh, I'm happy, right? Or I'm joyful. And to me, happiness is a state is normally influenced by something that's going on, right? Like you get a birthday gift, you're happy. You found a lottery ticket that got you $100, you're happy. Your job just gave you a 1% raise, you're happy. But what joy is an attitude, right? It's an attitude of the heart and of the spirit. And so what that means is it goes regardless of whatever is happening. It goes in a way that is going to always flow through no matter what is happening. It's an attitude, right? It's independent of whatever is happening on the outside. It's independent of, okay, your job said that you did bad today. Okay, I can sit there and hold that, and I can also sit here and hold that, wow, like I'm joyful because I get to do the work that I get to do on a daily basis. I get to do work that I love on a daily basis. Not many people can say that, right? So that is joy, my definition of joy. Now, stubborn joy is an impenetrable joy that flows despite any negative things going on at the time. This word here, impenetrable, right? Like no matter what is happening, nothing is going to penetrate my joy. Nothing is going to penetrate the joy that I have for XYZ, right? Like I mentioned a little bit earlier in the conversation with John, my daughter, I get so much joy watching my daughter just like be present, like just be here, like holding her in my arms. The level of joy that I have that flows through me, it's just like on another level, right? Like I mentioned a little earlier, she was like crying a little bit earlier. She boo-booed in my arms a few days ago, like 4 times in 20 minutes. And yet I'm still present, I'm still here, and I'm still finding so much joy just being in the moment, right? Sometimes it's that just being in the moment, uninterrupted moment, right? Nothing is going to penetrate the joy that I have, whether it's good things are happening, bad things are happening, all the above is happening. Stubborn joy is the joy that's going to carry you throughout, the joy that's going to carry you despite of what might be happening at that time, right? It's not focused on whether you got enough money, right? It's not focused on, do you have a house over your head? Because that ties back to something that John had said when he talked about his first trip to Haiti, and he saw these folks down there still finding joy, still finding a way to sing songs, to find an opportunity to dance, to still have joy despite everything that was going on, despite their circumstances, right? And that's very different when you don't understand what that means, right? Again, going back to what I was mentioning a little bit earlier, in Western civilization, here in the United States of America, to be specific, we put a lot of value on things that's independent of us. But that's why you can have someone who's in prison and they can have all the joy in the world, right? You can have someone who might not have a home. They can still find joy with just being inside it, like being with the sun, right? Or being able to traverse different lands, right? And so I want to make sure that I emphasize this point with stubborn joy is it's impenetrable, no matter what's going on, no matter what's happening in the world, good, bad, and ugly. Notice I said and ugly because again, life is going to life. Yet with stubborn joy, you still find the opportunity to be at peace with things. You still find the opportunity to say, you know what? Yes, my situation is real messed up right now, and I can still find joy in knowing that, hey, I'm alive. Hey, I may not have the flyest of clothes. I may not have the flyest things right now, and I can still find joy in the fact that I still have things on my back. I still have shoes on my feet, right? I can still find joy in just being in community, just being in community with other folks. I can have a horrible day. Like I remember the first time I got an F in college. And I was real distraught about that, because I was like, that's not indicative of the quality of who I am or my intellectual capabilities. Got the F. And I remember being with one of my best friends at the time and just like kind of talking about that. And I mean, the F was still there, and I was still able to sit and find so much joy and laughter and just being around somebody that I trust and hold in highly in community with me. And so I want to do a quick pause for the cause real quick and say, because you're probably like, all right, like you're talking about this idea. It's very abstract. You're talking about this idea. So you're probably asking like, what does this mean? So I want to challenge you all to think about these few things. So think about what's important to you in this moment, right now. What is important to you in this moment? What are the things that you have going on in your life? What are the things that are influencing you right now? What's important to you? Is it important for you to, go outside today and experience the world? I don't know. But really reflect. We don't give ourselves a lot of time as men. From my perspective, we don't give ourselves a lot of time to really sit down and reflect. It's like we gotta go. We gotta hustle. We gotta make things happen. We gotta make things shake. Part of making things shake is rest. Part of making things flow is making sure that you are good. Because I can't keep pouring out into the world. I can't be here in community with you all today if I'm not doing that for myself. Right. And so also ask yourself, what does joy look like for you? And like really ask yourself, when's the last time that I've been joyous? When's the last time that I've been joyful? When's the last time that I felt joy, like true joy? Right. Like I noted a little bit earlier, like I get a lot of joy from holding my child. I get a lot of joy from being with my partner, my wife. I get a lot of joy being outside and just walking around. I get a lot of joy from journaling, right? Just reflecting on my journals, having that time to just turn everything off, turn off the social media, turn off the television, close the book, close the laptop, and just like really say, wow, this feels good. And being honest about that too, though, right? Like being honest. Now, the caveat with what I'm going to be sharing with you all today is understand that it's a constant practice, right? Like stubborn joy is a constant practice despite what is going on. So it's a constant practice. Today you might feel joyful. You might have that stubborn joy just beaming out of you. Next week, not so much. And that's okay, right? Because life is going to life. That's the only consistent thing. Life is always going to life. Things change, people change, seasons change, right? And so understanding that, give yourself the grace to say, all right, you know what? I'm not feeling that right now. I'm not there. And that's okay. The other piece with it though, too, is it takes a level of vulnerability, right? If we want to really talk, we also have to talk about vulnerability when it comes to men and masculinity, right? It takes a level of vulnerability to exude your stubborn joy. So the article that I wrote that served as the impetus for this here, or the crux, excuse me, that served as a crux for this presentation. There's a photo that I have of a young Black man. He's essentially like dancing in the street. And when I think about stubborn joy, I think about that. Like, wow, like you're literally in a blue suit dancing in the street in front of, I'm assuming like cars or, in front of the world, and you're just flowing, right? And I think that takes a level of vulnerability. That takes a level of courage to really lean into what your stubborn joy can look like, right? There was a tweet earlier in the summer that said something along the lines of, as it was from a black male, and he said, "Have you ever frolicked in flowers before, like in a flower bed? Like, have you ever actually like frolicked?" And I was like, huh, I've never actually frolicked a day in my life. But the way that he talked about it, he's like, I just never done that before. And I found so much happiness and so much being at peace in that moment, like literally frolicking in the flower fields. Little things like that. Like to me, that takes a level of vulnerability that I don't think many of us have yet, right? Like, because some folks, and it did happen where some folks are like, oh man, like that's gay, like, oh man, like they essentially are trying to tear this young man down because he's saying, I'm having joy for myself, independent of whatever else is happening in the world, independent of my family, my friends, fraternity brothers, what have you. I'm choosing joy for myself. And people are trying to take him down. And most of the people trying to take him down are men. Right. And so that's why I said it takes a level of vulnerability to really be able to exude your true and full, authentic, stubborn joy in the fullest sense of itself, in the fullest sense of you. And so when I think about that, I want to make sure that I put that out there, these two pieces. So it's a constant practice of what, despite what is going on, and also recognizing that it takes a true level of vulnerability to truly exude your stubborn joy in the fullest sense of the word. So you're probably like, all right, Dr. J, I hear you. I feel it. You're you're getting it. But you're probably like, all right, but what does this actually look like in action? This abstract idea, what does it look like in action? You're sitting here talking about stubborn joy. What does it look like in action? So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I give that to you, right? And so for me, my stubborn joy is I journal a lot. I find so much pleasure and passion. I feel so, I find so much pleasure and peace was what I meant to say in journaling and really like really taking a real inventory about what's going on in my life, what is going on in my feelings, what is going on in my emotionally, what's going on mentally, what's going on with me physically, and being able to refer back to that months, years from now and be like, oh man, like I was going through that. And just being able to like sit in the moment. Earlier this year, I started doing like a gratitude journal, right? And just finding like 3 things every day that I'm grateful for. Excuse me. And sometimes it was, I'm just grateful that I had this really good drink, right? I'm grateful that I had this really good drink that I was really, really looking forward to. So when I write in the gratitude journal today, I'm going to actually write about yes, my fraternity brothers, because we did a socially distanced gathering with like 4 people. So that fed me like that. I was like, wow, like I haven't been around these guys in so long. And also, I'm going to write in my gratitude journal about this really bomb apple juice that I'm going to drink that I've been like waiting for. And it's little things. So for you, you get to decide what are those things that's going to bring you that stubborn joy. This here is to me just like how my mind works in terms of color, right? In terms of seeing the world and being able to like see the vividness of what's happening in the world. And so for me, a lot of times I'll go outside. I'll go outside to just like essentially like meditate. And I'll like notice this flower. I'm like, wow, like that's a really cool flower. And just like noticing the different colors, the textures that we take for granted, right? Like we're so used, and I know everybody's been affected differently from COVID-19, and I am not indifferent to that. And I also recognize though too that I think COVID-19 forced a lot of people to slow down. It really helped a lot of people reconfigure what's happening in their lives. And so I felt like I was one of those folks where it helped me like slow down and breathe, right? Like just breathing. And so for me, when I look at this photo, I think about how I like to go on walks. I like to engage with the world with me. Like I'm gonna touch that flower, I'm gonna pick up that rock, I'm gonna feel the feels, if you will, and like sit in those moments, because again, we don't give ourselves as men the opportunity to do so. And this photo right here, to me, represents quite a few things. So in terms of finding stubborn joy, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, this was supposed to be the year that I was about to do my magnum opus 3-week trip to East Asia and all of that. Clearly, I didn't get to do that. But what I did get to do this year was really discover and travel within myself. Right. And so in tandem with these two, so having the journal, interacting, engaging, walking, and experiencing the world and in real life, right, so to speak, I also wanted to discover who I am, right? And so when I talked about the book a little bit earlier in the Q&A session that we had, And when I think about that book, like I looked at some of my older journals, that book has been literally on the table. It's been inside of me for 10 years, 10 years, and I'm just now getting to it, right? I think about I think about the friendships and the relationships that I have, and I'm so grateful. I'm so excited about the love that my daughter is about to experience from the world, from what we consider our village. And so I had to do a lot of deep diving within myself, looking at my journal reflections, having conversation with my wife, having conversations with my fraternity brothers to really assess like what's happening with me, right? Like, there was a time where this during this period where I was just crying because I would listen to Brown Skin Girl, and people might like kind of chuckle about that, but I'm bringing in this Black woman into the world. My wife and I are literally bringing in this life into the world that historically is oppressive to Black and brown bodies, and I am finding joy in listening to this song and imagining what my daughter is going to look like, who she's going to be, and I'm notating that. I'm noting that. I'm taking inventory of where I'm at, because that's important as men, and especially as Black men. It's important that we are doing our work, doing the self work, and really trying to understand who we are and how we show up into the world. Another thing that I've done to help with that is seeking therapy. I've been going to therapy for 5 years. December 5th, I think it's December 15th. This year will make 5 years since I've been going to therapy. Same therapist. I don't like her sometimes because she challenges me in ways I don't want to be challenged. And to be honest, it's been a lot of hard work that happened with her, and I'm so grateful for that. And I would strongly encourage not just the journaling and the reflection, the gratitude journal, not just engaging with the world, taking walks, and really like taking a pause for the cause, not just doing the self work, but also if you don't feel like you're capable of doing that on your own, find somebody that can help you, right? Find someone that can help pull that joy out of you and help you confront some of that harm and the trauma and the pain that you might experience that could potentially be blocking you really truly experiencing the fullness of stubborn joy, the fullness of self. Right, like I said, there are a lot of resources and things that's available that I can definitely provide to you all. There's a lot of different movements that's happening, particularly for Black men in mental health, to where it's free or really, really low cost, to make it a lot more accessible, to have these resources. Because a lot of times, people will say, "Well, I'm gonna pray." Well, you can pray to God and you can have a therapist, right? Like you can do these things. Like we are a very complex people. We're not just black and white. We're not just, yes and no, good and bad. Like we are all on the spectrum. And so really leaning into that, I think, is a very, very powerful tool. And just a few things that I think would help. You see the flower fields right here, right? Frolicking. Disconnect. A little bit earlier, I had shared in our Q&A with John about this book, and it was really, really helpful for me to disconnect from what was going on, to disconnect from the world. And again, that book is called Digital Minimalism, and it's by Cal Newport. And so he talks about these different ways that we try to disconnect, right? We might say, I'm gonna go on a 30-day binge of social media, and then I'm gonna go right back to it. It's not helpful, right? Like, so what he challenges the readers to do, and I'll challenge you all to do the same, is to really rethink your relationship with social media and media in general. So with the television, with your friends, with social media, Facebook, Twitter, and all of that, like really rethinking what is your relationship like with your phone, right? I know now they have the weekly time report and all of that, like really looking at that and really trying to gauge like, oh wow, like I spend 15 hours a week on Instagram. What else can I be doing within that 15 hours? Right? Like if I'm sitting here talking about I need to do this, okay, let me rethink my relationship with Instagram. So maybe it's not excuse me, maybe it's not I'm gonna just go cold turkey, but maybe it's I'll limit my interactions with social media or with Instagram for maybe like an hour a day, right? I even had to reframe my relationship with social media, particularly with Instagram, where, and this ties into your mind and body and spirit is important, and what you take in is important. Where I started unfollowing a lot of gossip pages, where I started stop following like um, pages that I felt wasn't pouring into me, right? Like we are also charged with what we're taking into our body. Just as much as you're eating really good food that might be really, really unhealthy, you might be taking in media messages and narratives that sound really good in the moment, but is actually being a detriment to you in the long term. And so really being mindful of that, right? That's why for me, when with the election thing, like I actually didn't really know, like the morning of, I didn't know that Biden and Harris actually won. I didn't know that, right? Like I kind of like removed myself from social media because it can get really, really toxic. It gets really, really toxic. And that can also tie into your real life, so to speak. So really try hard to disconnect and reimagine what your relationship is with social media, with your phone, with technology. Shout out to Black Mirror. If you ever watch that, I'm always open to having good Black Mirror dialogue. Next is reflection and gratitude. Makes all the difference. And so, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, as men, we don't take a lot of time to like pause for the cause. I think a lot of times with everything going on in the world, it's like, man, I got to get it. I got to get it. One of the things about getting it is making sure that you're resting. You can't, you don't expect your car to keep going. You don't expect your car to keep going without gasoline, nor do you expect your phone, your iPhone 12 Pro. You don't expect your iPhone 12 Pro to keep working when the battery is dead, right? So why do yourself that way? And so really taking a moment to pause and really reflect, like, what am I feeling right now? Right? Like what is in my heart? Like what is coming up for me this week? What am I what uh excuse me, what am I telling myself? Because that also matters too. What are you telling yourself on a daily basis? Are you telling yourself, man, like, man, you suck, right? Like that negative self-talk is real. It is very, very real. When I think about my book, I think about how I'm like, no, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get this down. There's been moments throughout this journey where I'm like, I'm not really understanding this. So I'm gonna just go ahead and put it to the side, and I'm gonna just put it off. Like I shared earlier, I've been holding on to this idea for more than 10 years. I need to get this out. And that's kind of what, again, reframing my thinking around that is like, I need to get this out. I need to tell the stories of these Black fathers. I need to put this narrative out there, not in a like I'm trying to get money piece, but because there's too much at stake right now, right? And so really doing the reflection piece is so key. And so one of the things that you can do, again, making this applicable, there's an app called the Focus app, and you can get it on the Apple Store, the App Store, and you can also get it in your Google platform store. And so what it is, it uses the Pomodoro method. And so I actually used this when I was writing my dissertation. But what this can do, this app, essentially, it gives you a timer. So you will say study, maybe you writing your reflection journal for 25 minutes or 20 minutes. After that 20 minutes, you'll get a notification, you get a break, you get a 2 minute break, and you'll be right back on it for another 20 minutes. And make sure that you like use that as an opportunity to do that constant reflection. 20 minutes a day, just kind of just take a break if you can. Because I'm not going to sit here and say, like, I know everybody's lives. Folks have a lot of different dynamics in their home right now. Well, going to school at home, as well as trying to manage everything at home. Like, you're not working from home, you're working at home. And so understanding that there's so much that's taking place right now. And so, maybe you start with 5 minutes a day, do something that feels accessible to you and your situation. And then in addition to that, put it in your calendar, right? You'll put your meetings in calendars. Why not put a meeting with yourself in your calendar? Right. And really understand, like, okay, like, what does this mean for me? What does gratitude look like for me? And so making sure that you're doing those parts, I think, is really, really important. And then wanted to also put out too is, have you given yourself grace during this period? I'm always big on these little notes, but thank you for reminding me to always look after myself. And I want to give you all that too. Make sure you always look after yourself. Have you given yourself grace during this period, during this time? And if so, what does grace look like? Right? Think about how you give grace to other people. Oh man, you know what? You didn't get that assignment to me. You didn't get this document to me. Okay, no worries. Have you given yourself that same grace? Have you given yourself that same level of compassion to say, you know what, I'm gonna be gentle with myself in this period? I'm working at home, right? And I tell my staff this, like, I understand you all are working at home. You have families that you got to navigate, you have work that you have to navigate. You are navigating all of this yourself. Let me give you grace. And I've tried to do better at giving myself the same. Try to make sure, like, okay, I didn't get this one thing off my to-do list done today. Okay, I'll get it tomorrow. I will make sure I get it tomorrow. But because there's other things that's happening, that's going to take precedence over that. So make sure that you're giving yourself grace during this particular period of time. And then finally, I would say self-care, more like self-reverence. And this ties into what I was sharing a little bit earlier about this article from Dr. Darrell Brooks, who actually talks about self-reverence. So a lot of times we talk about self-care is really from a real capitalistic point of view, right? It's like, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna buy all the stuff off of Amazon because I'm gonna feel better. I'm gonna go and get my nails done for 30 minutes, and that's gonna make sure that I'm great. And what Dr. Brooks actually argues is not focusing on that. Like, yes, that's good for the moment, but the hurt and the pain that you still have is still going to be there after, right? Just because you go and get your nails done, that doesn't mean that, okay, well, I'm healed. No, that just means that you're healed for the moment. You're pacified for the moment. And so what Dr. Brooks actually argues is moving to self-reverence. So how, in what ways have you been honoring yourself? Right? How have you loved who you are in the midst of these trials that's taking place right now? In what ways have you said, you know what, I love you, to yourself? When's the last time that you said that to yourself? When's the last time that you said, you know what, I respect you, I honor you, I see that you're doing the best work that you can do, all things considered, because context matters, right? And so really understanding that and acknowledging those pieces. So I really want to challenge you to think about, how can you move to self-reverence? Not saying that self-care isn't helpful, but that's not the only way. And that's pacifying you for a moment when you really want a movement to what's going on. That's going to heal. That's going to heal you from what's happening. That's going to heal you in these moments of doubt, when you need healing for moments of trials. So I want to make sure I put that out there too. And again, that is a lot of credit to Dr. Darrell Brooks. And I can send out the actual article to you all to make sure that you get it and you can read it and incorporate this into your work. And then, like I shared a little bit earlier, like, how are you talking to others? And then what are you telling yourself? Because it's easy to show up for others. And I'm guilty of this as well. When folks are like, yeah, man, Jamal, you doing great. No, I'm just out here, player. Like, I'm here. All right. Like, I'm here. But no, what I should do is thank you. Thank you. I am out here. I am out here trying to manage all these things while in the middle of a pandemic, while in the middle of a budget crisis, while in the middle of having a newborn child, in the middle of X, Y, and Z, because I would do the same for them. I would do the same. I'll say, man, John, like, I see you out here, you working. Oh, you're the president of this organization and you're doing all these things. Hey man, keep it up, man. You're killing it. I need to be able to talk to myself like that too, especially as a man and as a Black man specifically. I don't. That's not always the case. That I'm not always going to get that from others, and so a lot of times I have to give that to myself. And then, like I said, how are you talking to others? So how are you pouring into others? What type of language are you providing for others? Are you giving positive language? Are you approaching them from a deficit approach, right? Like, are you doom and gloom all the time? And like, if so, why? Ask yourself why. And then finally, stubborn joy is a gift from the universe. Use it as a marker for your own life and to honor those before you. And I want to really quickly pause here because, again, this is pause for the cause. But I want to put stubborn joy is a form of resistance in the face of oppression, right? And so I want to really pause here and really have you all sit with this idea, because you got to think that these systems of oppression are not to make you feel good. They want you to be sad. They want you to be upset. They want you to be despaired so you don't participate. Right? Like I think about the voting for the election and how many folks are like, oh, it just doesn't work for me. Oh, voting just doesn't work. Voting is whack. That's what folks want you to do. The system has been built to make you feel that way. So you don't participate in one of the processes, one of the few processes that your voice can actually be heard. Not saying that it's always going to fall to what you want, but at least you let your voice be heard. I think about the propositions, right? Everybody's so focused on the presidential election. Fantastic. That's great. To be honest, not really my cup of tea. My focus was the propositions. Why? Because they affected my life on a daily basis, right? You think about rent control. Rent control did not pass, right? You think about Prop 16. That did not pass, right? Now we did get Prop 17, if I'm not mistaken. It was given the opportunity for felons the right to vote, right? And so, I mean, I participated in that process. I had the opportunity to still smile, to still be like, you know what? Everything that's going on, I'm still going to show up. I'm still going to be happy. I'm still going to be joyful because I actually got to help create some change, right? And so the oppressors, if you will, they want you to be upset. They want you to feel like you're not anything. But with the stubborn joy, it's like, nah, I am somebody. I am still going to show up. I am still going to be my full authentic self, no matter what is going to happen, whatever you're going to throw at me. Yes, I can still be upset. I can be out in the streets protesting. I can be writing letters to Congress, my senator, like all of that. I can still do all of that. And I can still find joy in the fact that, dang, I love being Black. Right. And so I really want folks to understand that, like, having stubborn joy, it is a gift, right? It's a gift that a lot of us need to unlock, that we have the potential to unlock. And I want to encourage you to find ways to unlock that potential. And also recognizing too that stubborn joy is a form of resistance in the face of oppression at a time where literally so much is happening, a level of distrust, a level of division that's happening in the world right now. And Black and brown bodies are being snatched. Black and brown kids are being taken and harmed in so many different ways. Black women are being harmed in so many different ways. Black men are being harmed, and still showing up and still giving hope and still giving joy to those who may not have it. Right. We are very, very privileged in the United States in a variety of different ways. Right. And I always will think back to how John said, like, you had these kids in Haiti, or these folks in Haiti who were still like singing and having fun and just exuding it. Yet their situation is very, very different than ours. And I've experienced that in cities here in the United States. Right. Cities here in the United States where I've gone to, and I'm like, man, it's rough. But they still are happy. They're still finding their joy, and they're still showing up and still saying, how can I help you? How can I be a support to you? How can I make your life just a little bit better in this one moment? Right. And so I really want to end on that note. And then finally, it's all with love and honor from me. And I am really, really appreciative about being in a space with you all today. I'm really appreciative about you all just giving me the opportunity to just share some jewelry, right? Just sharing some free jewelry, some free gems that I hope that you all can take and incorporate into your work, into your lives, into who you are, not just today, but for the rest of your life. And thank you. Thank you so much.
That was a lot of jewelry there, I gotta say. I think that's my final thoughts are that this is a really important and powerful, not just a concept, but a cultural value that we need to start, bringing up in ourselves and also passing to the next generation. I also, what comes up for me is that we often don't feel safe. And I heard that in a lot of your presentation, that we don't feel safe feeling joy. And so we've got to get brave. and we've got to get courageous about that. Because to let whatever forces that be take that from us is a kind of defeat that I don't think we should ever accept. You know, personally, I hope that all of our Black male students get a chance to watch this presentation. I really hope that this is not the last time you are invited to speak to Cal Poly or at Cal Poly or at any other school. And I'm really optimistic about your future and what you're going to do and how you're going to bring just a more powerful Black community, through your work. And I'm really inspired by it, to be honest. Anybody watching? Yes, I did buy his book. I encourage you to do the same. It's not expensive. It's accessible. And whether you're a father, whether you're a son, I know you're going to get something from it. So I really think you should bring that into your life and go ahead and get that. I don't have any further questions, and I'm still processing a lot of what you brought for us here. Do you have any final words for Cal Poly students, Black men on campus?
Yeah. I know like I've dropped a lot. But I'm always big on I don't know how much time I have, right? And so I want to give you all as much as I can that is physically in me, because I never know if, I don't know what's going to happen, right? Whether it's like, hey, Dr. J, he was doing some other stuff. We wasn't expecting that, right? Like y'all might be like, nah, we don't want him to come back or whatever. And so I always want to make sure that I when I have time, you're going to get 125%. And I would strongly encourage each and every one of the young men that's listening to this session right now. Take time. When you are in a space, you fill that space as best as you can, because you don't know, right? This might be the only time that they ever invite. And I'm not saying that Cal Poly would, right? But I been in spaces where it's like, this is the only time a Black man is ever going to be in this space. I'm going to make sure that I create this space better than what it was before I came here. And so for me, I want to encourage the other Black men to do the same. Whether you're in leadership, whether you are just trying to figure it out, anytime that you're invited to a table, you use that table, you bang on that table, you hammer that table out, and you make sure that your presence is known, and be unapologetic about it. Be super unapologetic about it, because we've been for too long, for way too long, this idea of like shrinking ourselves. I hate having the idea of like I have to shrink myself to make somebody else feel better, because they're scared of my Blackness. They're scared of my maleness, my Black maleness, and how I show up in a space. And I want to give you all the permission, and I want to give you all the encouragement to feel it, because you're here for a reason, right? Like you're literally listening to this, you're watching this for a reason. Maybe you might get it right now. Maybe you get it from a few seasons later. You're like, man, I remember that dude. Like he had that real nice background. That was like super dope. Hopefully you take whatever you need from this time today. Whether you take 100%, whether you take 60, whether you take 10%. I just want you to take something from this day, and hopefully we can share my contact information with Nick and Adian. Like, feel free to share out my info, my email address, and we can have further conversation. Or, if you want me to show up at another time, like definitely feel free to tap in, because really we're all we got, right? These institutions weren't for us, and they will continue to change as long as we continue to show up and fight for one another. So thank you.
Well, thank you on behalf of the Men and Masculinities program at Cal Poly. And I think, we need to make Stubborn Joy an institution that is for us, an institution in our communities and in our lives, so to speak, that we're really bringing that out. And I'm just really inspired by what you brought here. I know I'm going to move forward with this in a way that I wasn't moving before, because like I don't know if I said it on the recording, but as Dr. Maya Angelou said, when you know better, do better. And I think everybody who has watched this video knows more and can do more and can improve. So I really appreciate that. And this has been a really powerful talk. We really can't thank you enough. You're a gift, my brother. You really are.
Thank you. I receive it.
All right. Well, that concludes our presentation today. Thank everyone for watching. Please have these conversations with your friends, with your family. Don't be afraid to find that rugged joy in your life. And I wish everyone the best. Thank you.
For sure. Thanks, y'all. Have a good day.